While Donald Trump has been disrupting trade patterns worldwide, I've had my own personal disruption in the sense that shifting homes. So I've been offline for a bit, apologize for that. But it seems like a good opportunity to go back to talking about what are the things that we use to stay well emotionally when there's a disruption that you feel like you at least have no sense of control over. And I'm going to share what I've learned over the many years of having things go sideways, but also from just observing the systemic effects of someone, in this case, a political leader, making decisions that have systemic effects. And when you use straight line of thinking, you're typically not aware of how that's going to play out. Or if you are, then you don't care about the consequences. So in observing all of this going on, it's important to stay well emotionally. And that's the focus of this video is to, and this particular post, is to provide some of the insights on the skills, the mental emotional skills you can use to stay well emotionally, even when the world is in chaos. And not by denial, but by actually building up your resilience muscle so that you can, be at peace with whatever comes at you, and therefore be far more resilient, faster, and with greater focus and ease. So the first thing I'd like to share with you is the business of where you place your attention, because energy flows where attention goes. And if you're focusing on the dark things, if you're focusing on the emotional disaster, certainly when I look at political parties in Canada, there's a lot of focus on the negative, the critical, and blaming, a lot of blaming, which reveals a complete lack of power, a complete sense of I have no bit of power, no control, so I'm going to blame somebody else. That's those are the signals you look for when understanding your own position, your own mental state, and where you want to place your focus. So number one then would be pay attention to or observe where you're putting your focus so that you can adapt it and adjust it to focus on things that are healthy for yourself. Now, this is not about, I understand there's a term called toxic positivity, and I'm assuming what that means is that you're positive even when there's no reason to be. In those instances, I found the best thing to do is just to simply be grateful about things. And I tell the story in some of my speeches, but in the speaking I've done, but it was the moment when I was homeless for about 9 years, where I was early on and I was really fighting the situation and upset, quite frankly, that I'd spent so many years working to bring, a more aware state of consciousness to decision-making, leadership, and all of that, only to find myself not feeling valued and not being valued, and homeless for a long period of time. So this was early days, and I still hadn't focused on developing the skill set that goes with those kinds of situations that are extremely useful now. But what I noticed is that I had an option. When it comes to sense of control, and I'm going to summarize this at the end of the video because it's important stuff for you to, for anyone to pay attention to and do your own self-diagnostic on how am I doing with my emotional health and my mental health. But anyway, the first thing is a sense of control. You always have a sense of control over how you respond. And that, of course, starts with, what am I paying attention to? Is it positive? Is it negative? Am I thrilled with the drama? I've been watching some of the posts that I see on Facebook in particular, although I can't spend much time on that, on anything for that matter, for reasons that I can share later. But the point being that there's just a lot of toxic, critical, toxic, and it's really not constructive. And that's a very, not only weak mind, but also a weak emotional state, a very depleted emotional state when you get to the point where everything is toxic and name calling and everything else. So in this first step of the sense of control, it's paying attention to what do you do? What are you focusing on? What diet? And you've probably heard this before, but it's a lot more difficult to practice it than it is just to hear it and go, oh yeah, tick that box, stay positive. it's not so much stay positive, it's more pay attention to what you're paying attention to, because the energy of that is what will inform your biological communication, your internal biological communication, and allow and inform directly whether your body thinks it's in a state of peril or whether your body thinks you've got everything under control. In terms of sense of control, there are specific breathing techniques that you can use to basically trick your brain into thinking everything is under control. And that's box breathing. That I think is a short clip that I'm not sure whether I've posted that or not, but it certainly I have in the past posted a clip of a military colonel who did an interview with me, and we talked about that particular methodology as a way to stay calm before entering into unknown territory. Clearly, what you're doing here is not only just paying attention to the neuroscience of how we work as people, but also you are making sure that you're looking after yourself in the process, and doing it in a way that is intelligent. It's not running around with your hair on fire, because that has a huge impact on people. It's more a matter of staying focused and clear on what you on staying focused and clear on what you want to achieve through the process. So no matter what happens globally, no matter what happens locally, no matter what happens nationally or internationally, there is so much to learn from what is going on, both at a systemic level and at a personal level. So first diagnostic then is to, your sense of control is entirely governed by what are you paying attention to, what are you focused on, and is that feeding you energy, or are you feeling depleted? And if you're depleted, you're in charge of that. You can basically say, yeah, well, I'm going to pay attention to certain things that fuel me. I'm going to be aware of other things, but I'm not going to feed my soul with them, if that makes sense to you, or if that language isn't too offensive. So that's step one, sense of control. And then the second component is your outlook on life. The basic outlook on life has always been, is your glass half full or is it half empty? Well, that depends on the context, and that depends on the circumstances, and it depends on your heart's energy. And sense of control and heart energy are directly related. A lot of the Whitehall studies that were done way back in the UK pointed out that people who had no sense of control were depressed, were working with mental and health illness. So we do know from a research point of view that's there's a connection there. But your heart energy and your heart and the whole question of your outlook on life is still a matter of choice, your choice, no one else's. And so when I was in this ridiculous situation where I had lost my home and I was in my car, actually I was in a small cabin, beautiful small cabin, beautiful setting that I just had. It was about big enough for a bed, but it was big enough that I had a roof on my head and everything was looked after there. And I realized I had the option of deciding, I can either be really cranky about my situation here, or I can be grateful for what I have. Now that may sound, I don't know, flippant or condescending. There may be a number of connections or meanings that people have for that way of seeing it. But for me, it was just kind of practical. I've got a choice here about how I handle this, and I would prefer to handle it with grace if possible. And so my decision then was to be grateful, grateful for what I had, grateful for the options that I had available to me, and that is more gratifying than running around with your hair on fire, blaming other people, blaming yourself. That's usually the first stop. Blaming yourself for what went wrong or could have gone wrong or did go wrong. So much of that is a matter of awareness and then choice. So that's the first one, was sense of control. Being aware that you have control over how you respond. The second one is your outlook on life. How do you walk into uncertainty and recognize that how you see it is how you'll experience it. And the third one is initiative, because out of all of those two, when you put those two together, your initiative then is your get up and go. I used to have a great poster of a lion sleeping, and lions, when they sleep, are kind of like cats. They sleep upside down with their paws in the air and look like they need a tummy rub. But that is the signature on the poster said, my get up and go is got up and left. So initiative is, are you a self-starter? Do you recognize you have control and can act on it? So it's the ability to turn awareness into action. And this is probably one of the things that you'll see in many organizations where there's a high level of command and control. There's a killing of initiative. There is a story a colleague of mine told me recently where in a large company, there was a group of people that something needed to be fixed, and they were waiting for someone to come and tell them, A, they could fix it, and B, what to do to fix it. Now, you don't typically pay people a heck of a lot of money to wait for somebody else to tell them what to do. People have the creativity. If they need the knowledge, they know who to call or can find out who to call. And that's what initiative is all about. It's basically stepping forward and solving those problems on your own. And so when I look at the world events right now, the initiative would be to learn how to be calm in the center of all this, not by denying what's going on, not by blaming the other side, which is completely upholds the whole binary conflict and tension, but by being at peace with what is going on, in the sense that just watch and observe what shows up, how it shows up, because there's some very interesting times that we're in. There's the three things that all comprise your personal spirit: sense of control, outlook on life, and your initiative, the degree to which you feel you can get up and do something for yourself, for the community you're in, for the company you work for, whatever place you choose. It's that idea that I can do this. So those are the three components of personal spirit. Related to that, and this now goes back to the bigger picture. If political parties were to sit down and have to work together, absolutely have to work together, not with one party winning and the other party losing, but with people working together, the skill set required to make decisions and to lead would increase exponentially. But it would mean using conflict in a creative and a constructive way, not in a destructive way, as we've witnessed humanity's pretty good at on this planet, that this beautiful oasis in the galaxy. So those, I want you to, I'm offering this as a way to kind of observe what's going on and what the dynamic could be. Should we required to work together to make solutions work as a cross diversity? So no denial of diversity, but actually understanding the value of diversity in complex environments. And that would allow us to exercise all three of those personal spirit components. So you can use those three little dimensions that I just mentioned to check out your own state of health with that. And there's a breakdown that I can give you as we go through this process. But you can use that to check in with yourself and say, how am I feeling? What's my state of initiative? Do I feel something that I can move forward? If you don't, go back to, what's my sense of control? Do I feel I can do something or nothing? Or where is the span of control? Wherever it is where you can do that kind of work. And then the outlook has to do with, how do I choose to think about this? How do I choose to feel about this? And sometimes feeling is not a choice. You just feel that way, and that's the way it is. But you can also learn from those emotions because they are telling you something. And in my last conversation with Sam, you heard the sadness and grief, and certainly I've felt that in my experience with the planet, because I love the animals and the creatures on this planet. I've been, so many places I've traveled specifically to see these animals. And so it saddens me when I realize that we're so far removed from caring about that. So I'm hoping that by working together, we can shift that. We can change that considerably, and remember that we are part of this living system. So I hope that was helpful to you. I wanted to specifically start this process of sharing these insights, or sharing this information that I've gained over the years, so that you can stay well emotionally no matter what's going on the outside, but engage in constructive and creative processes to make things better, healthier, more compassionate, and more caring, not just for other people, but also for all creatures and all species on this beautiful planet we live on. Donna Jones, thanks for joining me.